Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing Motherless Brooklyn. This was written for the screen and directed by Edward Norton and based upon the Jonathan Lethem novel of the same name. And it stars Edward Norton, Bruce Willis, Alec Baldwin, Willem Dafoe and a variety of others. The film is set in 1950s New York and focuses on Lionel, played by Edward Norton, a lonely private detective with an affliction. He ventures to solve the murder of his mentor and only friend Frank Minna, played by Bruce Willis. Armed only with a few clues and a powerful engine of his obsessive mind, Lionel unravels closely guarded secrets that hold the fate of the whole city in the balance. This was a film I'd wanted to see for quite some time. I'm a big fan of this genre and I love the private detective sort of detective stories. I'm a huge fan of Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett. This film really encompasses the 1950s noir genre in a very brilliant way. I think everything about this movie is fantastic. I haven't read the book, but I've really wanted to. And apparently Edward Norton had read the book in the late 90s and then decided to get the rights to it because it was the story he really wanted to make. And they started developing it in 2001. So it's been like a nearly 20-year journey to get this film made. It's just sad that this film hasn't got the recognition it kind of deserves and hadn't got the wide range of release that it deserves because it's such a brilliant film. I think Edward Norton outdid himself here as director. This is like his second or third film as director, and I think he's really starting to pave a way as an interesting filmmaker. I'd love to see him do more films. I think he's one of the greatest actors of all time. I'd put him up there with Pacino and De Niro and Brando, because he's just such a captivating, interesting sort of actor who really commits to the role he's playing no matter what it is, and he's absolutely brilliant in here. It's a real throwback to the 50s. A lot of these sort of modern noir films that they make, that they set in a different period, like the 30s or 40s or 50s, they just sort of feel like they're playing dress up. Where this film really felt like it was a film that could have been made back then. It really felt like that. It felt like these characters were real, they inhabited this real world, and it was like it was a documentary on history, and I really liked that. I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. I think all the acting is fantastic. I think this is one of Edward Norton's best roles in a long time. This with Birdman is probably the two of the best roles he's had in a long, long time. And he really immerses himself in this character, and you really believe him. You know, he says he has a condition, this affliction, where he has Tourette's and obsessive compulsive disorder. And it shows how it affects him. The whole story is told from his point of view, from his inside of his head. And he explains who he is and what his affliction does to him. He's super smart and has a photographic memory. But no one ever sort of gives him the benefit of the doubt. No one ever thinks he's capable of more than what he's doing at the moment. Even his mentor, Frank, who takes him in and knows he's really smart and uses him to his advantage to solve cases, he doesn't let him interact with people. He doesn't let him show up at certain places because he's worried that what people might think because of his affliction, because he swears or he puts words together or he touches people continuously and can't help it. It isn't until something happens to Frank that he realizes that he has to step up. He has to be the person that solves the mystery and has to work out what happened to his friend, and he can't stop until he makes it all right in his head. He says it's like having broken glass in his head until he can make sense of it. And this sends him on this journey. And it shows how capable he is. He starts to be really good as a detective. He doesn't even doubt himself, he just gets involved in it. It's a bit of a shaky start when he first begins, but ultimately he navigates his way through it in a unique way. And when his affliction flares up, disguises it as a sneeze, or he just keeps saying, sorry, I have a condition. But he doesn't let that thing affect him. He's accepted that's part of his life. He does things in order to deal with it better. Like when his mind's crazy, things that help him calm down are smoking weed, I guess, alcohol, and chewing gum. Breaking it in half and eating half of chewing gum, and it sort of helps him calm his mind. And when he can focus completely on something, that's when he works the best. And this mystery is twists and turns along the way, and he learns about himself, he learns about what's going on, he learns about Alec Baldwin's character, Moses, this guy who sort of controls New York. He's really behind the scenes pulling the strings. The mayor is sort of a puppet and sort of does his bidding, and anything that's done or made or used in the city goes through him first, and he's the one who gets things sort of done. Norton said he based this on a real person that was sort of involved in the 50s, even behind the scenes in New York, and things wouldn't get done without his say-so. And he sort of emerged that into this sort of film. Even though Norton took the character from the book He really sort of changed the plot and crafted something for himself. And by far he's the most interesting thing about this film, but all the other characters are unique as well. Willem Dafoe shows up doing what Willem Dafoe does best, and he's really great, and the scenes between him and Edward Norton are really fun to watch, and they're really great at bouncing off each other. You can tell they're two really talented actors at the top of their game, able to use the skills they have to be realistic in scenes and to have a great camaraderie between each other. And Bruce Willis as Frank is really great as well. This is the best role he's had in years, maybe decades in my opinion. He's just really great. He only has a small role, but it's a pivotal role. It's a role that pushes Lionel into the limelight, pushes him to find out what happened to his friend and do what he has to solve this mystery. It's like those sort of films where you have the hero, or you have, or even a Western where you have sort of the sheriff and the deputy. And the side characters are always the ones that are standing behind and support the hero. But what happens when something happens to the hero? Then these characters have to rise up and do things they didn't think they were capable of, and become the heroes they want to be, but people just don't think they can be. And this film absolutely encapsulates that. Norton's character is just such a driving force. He's fascinating. I love the little tics that he does, these moments where he keeps touching people and he can't help it. They don't make fun of his Tourette's, but it adds to humorous moments in the film where he can't stop touching people, or he's in a bar and a lady asked him to light a cigarette, and each time he lights a match he blows it out, like he just can't help it. There's even a scene where he comes through a door and he has to open and shut it 3 or 4 times. It sort of shows the pain that he goes through, that this isn't something that's fun or entertaining that he has. It sort of wears on him. It hurts his neck when twitchy things that he can't help. You can see that the things annoy him, but he can't stop them. They're just part of it, and the more he tries to control it, the more it takes over. And you can see it's a real struggle for him, and he keeps saying sorry to people, and they accept it. This sort of having this affliction at this period in time, no one really knew what it was, or what caused it, or what to call it. So it felt like he was sort of in his own little thing and couldn't help what was happening. But people kind of accepted it, even though they weren't sure what was going on. They call him a strange guy, but they know he's really smart. They talk about how out of all the men that Moses had working for him, they didn't expect him to be the ace in the hole, as they call it, as this guy who comes in, really starts to shake things up and starts to move things, and is very capable, but has never had the opportunity to do that. And he rises above everything that happens to him, he rises above it. And he becomes the man he wants to be. There's a female character in it as well, important to the story, played by Gugu Batherol, who is this English actress who's really fantastic. She's an actress I've followed for quite some time. I think she's really great. And she's sort of really fantastic in this film. She plays a character that's sort of center of everything that's going on, and that she might be onto something, and she puts her life in danger and the life of her father in danger. And it's really about Lionel coming in and trying to protect her and help her, like they do in the classic sort of sense of the noir genre, especially the private detective stuff, where there's a female character that particular character has to help. He's really great in it, and her character really levels Lionel out a little bit. Her character sort of levels Lionel out a little bit. He feels a bit more calm and centered around her. He still has his affliction, but it's not as strong and as powerful as it was before. And it's sort of a real bond that formed between these two characters. And the chemistry between them two is fantastic to watch on screen. In my opinion, this is close to being a masterpiece. I think it's fantastically done, edited, put together. I think the use of music and the particular tune that's used to give you the sense of what it's like inside of Lionel's head is really fantastic. I love the set. I love the way it's set in the 50s and they recreate that. I love how they recreate the train station that was sort of around in the 50s in an old hangar. He's a character with some sort of affliction. He's a character that has something about him that's unique. And a lot of these detectives have that they have something particular about him. The only criticism I would have for this film is I think a lot of times the music's a little too loud. You can't sort of always hear what the characters are saying. It's a bit loud for Lionel's voiceover that we're learning about him and the world. But besides that, I loved everything about this film. It's one of my favourite films so far that I've seen in recent years, and I was really impressed with this film thoroughly. Final thoughts. Really, it's about showing a person as who they truly are. And even though they may have an affliction, they have something that stops them being quote unquote normal, they're able to accept that and use that to their advantage. And this film is a great example of that, because Lionel as a character has this condition, but he doesn't let it stop him from being who he is and using the skills he has of the photographic memory and the ability to put things together in a really clever way. He uses that to his advantage. And it also looks at the idea, you shouldn't discount someone just because they have an affliction or have something wrong with them, because they are more capable than you could ever imagine, and this sort of encapsulates that. I'm going to give Motherless Brooklyn 4.5 out of 5. I really thoroughly enjoyed my experience with this. I think Norton has crafted a really interesting and fascinating film. His performance is fantastic, best in many years, and the rest of the cast do a great job as well. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe at the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.